As part of our 20th anniversary celebrations in 2024, Pharos Architectural Controls is spotlighting 20 people and projects that have helped shape our company and our products and continue to inspire us every day. Ryan Sainsbury, Regional Manager for UK and Northern Europe for Pharos, and I are excited to be joined today by Iain Ruxton from Spears Major Light Architecture to talk about his experiences with Pharos products, particularly as he's a pro user of them. So hi Iain, hi Ryan.
Hi Amy, hi Ryan.
It's great to have you both here. So first of all, let's dive in, Iain. Let's talk about how you first came into contact with Pharos products and how that relationship has developed.
Well, I go back, pretty much to the beginning, within a few months, I suspect. I first saw the product at the old ARC show at the Business Design Centre that ran for a few years, like 20 years ago, basically. I can't remember who first said it. Was somebody in the show said, you need to go and see this. I can't remember who it was now. So I went to see it. And I was like, yeah, okay, this solves problems for me. Because at that time, we were in our very architectural with a capital A lighting work. It was mostly white light, and it was mostly phase dimming, and it was mostly scene based rather than kinetic show based. So all these sort of architectural systems on the market were doing just fine for most of what we needed. But we were doing more and more sort of color change stuff that we wanted to be a little bit kinetic. Color changing LED was coming through. So we needed more DMX. And at that time, the DMX controllers that we could use on the market there was a very, very limited pool to choose from, and they were limited in function because most DMX controllers were entertainment consoles in effect that expect an operator to be standing behind them pushing buttons. Whereas I needed something that can just sit there, fit and forget, and be triggered by something else through whatever means. And there weren't many, and what there were pretty much entirely DMX recorders. So you would create your show on whatever you wanted, record it into that, and then it could play it back. And it might be able to have several shows in it, and it would play it back when you triggered it in a particular way. But you couldn't do an awful lot with that. It was very limited, and also a bit of a pain to program as well. So having used a few of those, and successfully but annoyingly, on various projects, the Pharos would say, okay, this is much better because this is a show controller that's actually going to do show control. I can do a whole lot more in this, and I can fairly easily interface it to an existing architectural system. There's plenty of assorted connectors on it for various ways of achieving that. So even if it was just contact closures, we could do it. So it's like, okay, brilliant. This solves problems for me. And I've basically sort of been using it ever since whenever I need kinetic show control.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really interesting, right? Because if you look back to Pharos's history, it was very much the same thing where we developed a product initially for the themed entertainment market, whereby there was a lot of like entertainment consoles, or as you've just said, Iain, DMX recorders, but they weren't quite right for that market. They needed something that was a little bit more installer friendly and just basically designed for permanent installations, and that could be kind of automated and run off its own routine, as opposed to having to be operated or even just kind of really rudimental. So yeah, it's quite interesting how I think a lot of people were looking for that in the market, and obviously we've been, able to develop a product that meets so many people's needs. So since that initial point, when you've obviously been using our controllers, since then the projects, especially from what I've seen, have become bigger. They've certainly become more complex, and they have a lot more demands nowadays. And this is something I think we've talked about before, about kind of the way that the industry's gone, the way that these installations have gone. So from your perspective, when you've been specifying our hardware, what kind of trends have you seen in the market in terms of the scalability and the demands that these types of projects require?
It's all I think it all comes out of the the sort of the LED revolution really over the last 20 years. So color changing light is much more accessible. It's much for a luminaire manufacturer to make a color changing light is no longer an enormously specialist thing. It's really not that hard. So everybody does them. So you can get RGB, RGBW, RGBWA, whatever lights from plenty of people fairly cost effectively now, depending how powerful you need it and how high quality you need it, but very accessibly. There's been a great deal of interest in the last 20 years from clients and so on in colored light and kinetic light. So there's just a lot more of these projects out there. As soon as it's kinetic, you want to do it with DMX anyway, so that you can change things smoothly and quickly. If you just need to do static scenes, then you might well do it with DALI Type A. But if you need anything that's kinetic, then you want to do it with DMX. So there's just a much higher demand because the equipment is out there and the applications for the equipment are out there. But also the one of the big things that's pushed scale, and certainly scale of control anyway in terms of like channel counts, has been pixels, because LED pixels are relatively cheap. It's become very easy to do what is effectively a big old screen, and the channel counts just go through the roof. A 10 by 10 grid, that's 100 pixels, so that's 300 channels gone straight away just in RGB. And 10 by 10 does nothing for you. That's a tiny amount. So the channel counts just go crazy. The universe counts just go absolutely crazy very, very, very quickly. By means of an example, I don't do an awful lot of pixel grids, but because, to be absolutely honest, they're not that interesting to us most of the time. But anyway, so the ones we do tend to be a bit odd. But one I did in recent years, it's down in Broadgate in London, around the back of Liverpool Street Station, and it's a soffit. It's about a 5 meter from memory diameter circle, with a sort of fairly coarse-ish pixel pitch behind a slightly diffused Barasol fabric. And it's terrific. It worked out really well. It's done in conjunction with an artist. The actual content is generated by some software of theirs, and I use the Pharos VLC to basically take their input as a video signal and lay it onto the grid and pump out the ArtNet to the devices. And it does the show control. It turns it on and off and gives them a little bit of local override from a touch screen if they want to make it a particular color for the day, as people occasionally need to do. But it's so it's only 5 meter grid. It's fairly coarse, but that was still, I think, about 15 universes from memory, which these days is not that significant. But 10 years ago was quite significant. 20 years ago was, oh my god. So yeah, the scalability of of everything has just shot up. So obviously the requirements of controllers, products like yours have had to go with it.
Yeah, we've certainly seen that as well. I think what you're saying about kind of doing any kind of work with pixel LED tape, even with new stuff on the market, like the SPI kind of formats, which
SPI tapes,
where you've got normally a very kind of small pixel pitch, but you can have tens of thousands of these LEDs where you need then obviously a high channel controller, and again something like the VLC, which is specifically been developed to work with those huge amount of channels for quite a cost-effective price, and is what I think. And then obviously being able to process not only incoming video but also to be paid back video from your local hard drive as well, which is really, really important.
And to do the generative content as well. To just the stuff that Pharos is inventing itself, creating itself. And also you've still got all the scriptability behind that, so you should be able to make most things work.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, scriptability always depends on how good the programming is, which is actually quite.
It does. It does.
Yeah,
But, you know,
it's quite a
if you're
nice
good
little
enough,
subject
you can do,
because
do custom presets and things. You know.
yeah, well, yeah, of course, yeah. If you're really kind of a pro user,
They're a bit of a learning curve, though.
Yeah, very much a learning curve. So I think one of the things that we were talking about recently in was about some of the complexities of projects, and I know that we've recently kind of been working with yourselves on a project out in Saudi that's had a lot of quite complex needs. There's also, again, one of those projects that's scalable, has a lot to it, but for different kind of reasons. So obviously, you know the project we're talking about. So give us a little bit of an introduction into kind of what the actual project is and what the requirements were for that project.
Sure. Yeah, it's a real one-off. This it's a place on the outskirts of Riyadh, which was the original sort of fortified city town where the modern Saudi state started, and that it was it's when the Saud family started gathering the tribes in the region and actually kind of creating a state rather than just lots of individual sort of tribes and families wandering about and kind of having a fight now and again. So yeah, it's important culturally because it is where the modern state started, and it was there until about 250 years ago, I think, when the Ottomans came and basically blew heck out of it with cannons and all the rest. And once that dispute was eventually resolved, the Saudis basically just moved and built a new city, which is now Riyadh. But they, in recent times, they've sort of realized the heritage value of this place and its cultural importance to them. They've done a lot of archaeology, and it is now a visitable attraction, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so it's really significant. And the lighting we've done there is purely a lighting project. There's no kind of architecture or anything. We are the lead designer, which is unusual for us, when those ones don't come along so often. But technically it's an interesting one because it's a huge site. It's massive, so there's challenges there with control, just in terms of networking and how to design that system with the most capability, but also the most resilience, which led me to design the system out with multiple LPCX controllers rather than one massive one. I could have done it with one massive one in a central location and just pumped all the ArtNet out all over the place, but in the end, well, it's not ArtNet actually. It's because it's Pharos EDNs at the output, so it's Pharos data. Anyway,
yeah, so it's our proprietary protocol, which is then put back to DMX. Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, functionally, it's pretty much, for me, it's almost exactly the same as punting out ArtNet to gateways, and so it's it's very straightforward. So yeah, I used multiple controllers because we didn't know how good the connectivity was going to be between different parts of the site. We didn't know what order things were going to get installed in. When we first designed the system, we didn't know how good the local network that we were able to jump on was going to be. In the end, pretty good, but we couldn't rely on it. So I'm glad I did do that. It's been the right decision because it's saved us once or twice when we've had problems in one area or another. Another interesting thing about this is the scale. I think I currently have about 35,000 channels patched, and there's not a single pixel in it. None of that is pixel matrices. This is all actual RGB lights. Just big old chunks of metal. It's linear lights and sort of wash light, floodlights. That's an awful lot of individual lights, and just the challenge for the installers is one thing. The challenge for my colleague Adrian, who's run most of the focusing, has been another thing. But from the control point of view, it's just the channel count, getting it all patched correctly, and then figuring out how to handle that in layouts so that we can run dynamic effects over them on a site so big is it's seriously challenging. I can't get the whole site on one layout. I have to break it up. Yeah, it's been a very, very interesting one, and I can't really think what other system I could have used to get to where I needed to get to on that.
Yeah. And that's quite interesting, because I know that we've had a bit of back and forth about some of the programming aspects there as well. So one of the kind of one of the objectives, I should say, was basically to have the lighting scenes respond to when a full moon occurs in the sky. So yeah, I mean that in itself was quite challenging and needed a little bit of scripting. So what do you tell us a little bit about that, Iain, and what the
Absolutely.
objective was? And
Sure. I mean, I do quite a lot of Lua scripting, really. I got into that a few years ago and realized that that's where the real power is in Pharos, because you can build an awful lot in Pharos triggering and conditions and so on, but you can make life a lot more powerful, a lot more organized if you get into scripting. So I do quite a lot, and I knew that I needed to be able to identify what night was nearest to the moment of full moon. And I know that Pharos calculates full moon every day, as it does sunset and sunrise and so on. So I thought, oh, this should be pretty straightforward. I'll just, look that up and, compare some values, and off we go. And it turned out to not be quite that simple. So I got hold of Ryan, and he went, oh, that sounds easy enough. And then he started looking at it and went, actually, it's not quite that simple.
no, not exactly.
At which point we both got online and learned quite a lot about astronomy.
Yeah.
that neither of us really understood before, which was interesting. But it was a great, and we got there. But it was a great example of not just of the power of the system in terms of being able to, if it won't do it, you can probably write code to do it, which is incredible and an absolute lifesaver. I do lots and lots of little bits of bespoke code. It's great, but it was also a fantastic example of the support from Pharos, which is one of the other reasons that I like Pharos stuff so much. It's not just the hardware and the software; it's also the support. Because I was able to get hold of Ryan. I'm in a hotel room in Riyadh and he's in London, and we're able to have a chat, try some things out, send them backwards and forwards. He's also able to just go upstairs and talk to the development team at Pharos and pick their brains about it, and then come back to me. And that's that level of support. And this is all like same day. So it's not like, oh, we'll have a think about that, give us a couple of weeks, or oh, we'll put it in the next software build in 6 months time. It's like, yeah, we'll sort it out now. And that level of support, particularly when you're on site and you've got a limited amount of time to resolve something, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Even if I send in a support request in what is the middle of the night in London, because God knows where I am in the world, could be anywhere. I remember doing this once from Canada, where we hit a weird problem that was it wasn't a bug as in it was an error. It was a bug, but it was compatibility. Actually, it was a kinetic thing. Blech. So we hit a problem in the middle of the night. It was me and the programmer who was with me about 2 o'clock in the morning in Toronto or something. And I sent in that support request, and 10 minutes later I got a reply back. Right. Ryan and his colleagues were all in bed, right? But I got a reply back from Thomas in Boston. And there's other times where I've sent a request in the middle of the night and I've got a reply back from the guy in Hong Kong. So that support is always there. In the case of this this Canadian thing, Thomas picked it up and went, okay, I think I know what that might be. I'll get to the bottom of it. And then he called me like an hour or two later and went, yeah, I know what it is. I can get it fixed once the guys in London get up. So we went, okay, fine, we'll call it a night. Went to bed. When I got up in the morning, there was an email in my inbox saying, okay, download new beta version, download it here. Where they just updated that bit of code to deal with these terrible Kinet boxes. So that level of support is amazing, and I know that comes from Carolyn's heritage in entertainment world, and where the development team originally come from. It's the whole the show must go on mentality.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Obviously, we want people to be well supported with our products. We know that you know, when someone's on site and you're working to a time frame and, you know, you need to get some kind of issue resolved, whatever that may be, having kind of a support service that's there to be able to help you kind of navigate those issues is really, really important. And that's why we have people in multiple locations now, you know, all around the world. So effectively, you know, our support service can be there day or night. Also, it's really important because, of course, a lot of people commission their systems at night, which is not, you know, standard office hours. So yeah, that's it's really, really good to kind of hear that. And I know that the support guys will be really, really kind of proud of the work that they do. And you know, they're obviously to help you kind of get your projects all wrapped up and
and they always do. They're always super helpful. And the fact that, you know, they you know, you seem, as far as I can see, and I know a lot of your colleagues there, and you know, I've visited a number of times, you know, and you seem to run a very flat organization. So, you know, the support guys have immediate access to the development team if they need it, and you know, it's it's just this great service, which you know, the great products are no good without the great service in this kind of industry. So
yeah,
it's
absolutely
really
a marriage made in heaven, one would say. Well, I mean, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience of the products, but also, you know, it gives us a bit of a glimmer of insight into your world as well, and some of the projects and the fantastic work that you're doing as well, Iain. So we just want to say thank you so much for being a part of our 20th anniversary celebrations, and here's to the next 20.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. You know, I will continue specifying and using Pharos stuff, and you know, I always enjoy being you know, I've got to the point now where, you know, I'm sort of almost part of the development, in that, you know, they run new things past me and I run new ideas past them, and you know, there's quite a few things in the system that started off as feature requests of mine. So it's a genuine collaboration. It's not even just, you know, that I specify them and somebody goes and buys one. It's actually a much closer relationship than that.
Yeah, awesome job. Well, long may it continue, and thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.